They never existed. They were just a fairy tale, until the day they saved us all. That's the rumor that's whispered in corners of our history halls, usually dismissed with a shrug or scoff. But I'm here to share a story that proves humans weren't just real. They were extraordinary. This account might change the way you see our galaxy forever. Elder Kovak is the one who first told me this tale. He's a quiet old historian with deep-set eyes and a voice that carries both wonder and sadness. If you met him, you'd see that he moves slowly, like each step is a reminder of something significant. In our culture, we call him the Memory Keeper. Many hatchlings gather around him, fidgeting with excitement because they've heard the rumors that Kovak knows the truth about an ancient monument dedicated to creatures that exist only in myths. On that day, as he began to speak, the entire room fell silent. He cleared his throat and said he'd lived long enough to see the impossible. He recalled a time when our planet, our beloved Kexia, was trembling on the edge of a nightmare. The Kexians, our race, had finally reached a point in technology where we could explore our star system. We had small fleets for research, some advanced scanning devices, and a population that was curious about what lay beyond our sky. But as we pushed forward, our second moon started acting in ways that defied everything we thought we knew. Deep inside that moon's core, a destabilization began to brew. The fragile rock around it started cracking, and within days, we could see visible fractures glowing with molten heat. Scientists warned that if the moon burst, gigantic shards would rain down on our planet. Our entire civilization would be crushed in a storm of debris and molten fire. Fear consumed the Kexians. Our leaders pleaded across the galactic network for assistance. Yet every race that heard us either turned away or saw an opportunity to trade our survival for resources we could barely afford to lose. Politicians were negotiating deals that involved giving up vital technology or large portions of our farmland in exchange for subpar solutions that might not even work. On top of that, the specialists from other worlds demanded shocking amounts of credits just to look at our star charts. Hope started slipping away. Then something happened that no one expected. A massive fleet of starships arrived in our orbit, dwarfing anything we had ever seen. Some Kexians thought we were under attack. Alarms rang out. Military outposts scrambled to launch their fighters. But before anyone even reached orbit, there was a message broadcast in every language in the galaxy. The voice was calm, measured, and deeply concerned. It said, "We are here to help. You do not need to fear us." Those ships belonged to the very species that many believed was a myth, humans. The fleet wasn't just warships, though there were plenty of those. It included transports, cargo haulers, rescue crafts, and even passenger liners. The strangest part was how efficient and organized they were. It felt like every ship had a purpose and every crew member knew their exact task. They wasted no time. Within days, they evacuated our entire planet. Every living Kexian was moved off-world. They took our families, our libraries, our historical artifacts, even pets and livestock. Buildings that held special cultural meaning were carefully dismantled so we could rebuild them later. Old statues, precious art, ancient scrolls. Everything was packed with almost obsessive care. And the humans never asked us for anything in return. Kovak would lower his voice at this point and remember how his own father reacted. He said that the older generation among us believed humans were merely bedtime stories. Yet the moment these so-called myths touched down on Kexia, they turned out to be real and unbelievably generous. Kovak said his father cried when he found out the humans had left Earth almost immediately upon receiving our distress call, traveling light years in record time just to save a race they had never met. After the rescue, the humans guided us to a freshly terraformed planet. They had prepared it not long before, and it was full of vibrant soils, new plant life, and stable weather patterns. They set up camps for us that quickly turned into proper cities. Over time, they even helped us build a fleet of our own. They never once mentioned a price for all this help. They simply said they knew what it felt like to stand alone in a dangerous galaxy, and they asked only that we never become like those who had turned away from us in our darkest hour. I remember Elder Kovak saying that from that day on, there were always tears in his father's eyes whenever someone mentioned humanity. Life got better. We started to flourish on our new planet, and the humans faded into the background like guardian spirits. But we never forgot them. We named streets, squares, and even cities in honor of their captains and admirals. Our warships still carry design elements from the early models the humans helped us create. For a few decades, it felt like we had a peaceful rhythm. Then the galaxy decided to test us all once again that a ruthless species called the Wraith appeared in multiple systems almost overnight. They broadcast a simple, terrifying message to any world in their path: submit or die. We soon discovered that these weren't mere threats. The Wraith wiped out peaceful civilizations, showing no mercy. Even races that attempted to surrender were annihilated. Whole planets fell silent, and the rest of the galaxy was paralyzed by fear. The humans responded first. It started with outraged messages condemning the violence. Then they called for a united front, encouraging all species to come together. They warned that if we didn't stand up now, the Wraith would grow unstoppable. Yet the galaxy hesitated. Some species thought it was safer to pay off the Wraith. Others believed that if they stayed quiet, the storm would pass them by. So humanity stood almost alone. Aside from 7 minor allies, each sending a handful of ships, there was no grand alliance. Still, the humans didn't back down. They believed that you fight for what is right, even if you stand alone. They launched their fleets to track the Wraith, determined to end the threat before it spread further. Battle records show that the humans fought like they were possessed. They struck hard and fast, managing to deal a surprising blow that left the Wraith scattered. But the cost was devastating. They lost 80% of their fleet, and millions of human lives were gone in a matter of weeks. If that wasn't enough heartbreak, a greater disaster followed. The Grand Council, an interstellar body that claimed to promote peace, contained traitors. They leaked key information to the Wraith, who then discovered the location of Earth and humanity's major colonies. Using antimatter star bombs, the Wraith wiped out entire planets, including Earth itself. Billions of humans died in a single night of unspeakable horror. From that moment forward, humanity was forever changed. Fewer than 1 million of them survived this cruel destruction. Their leaders vowed revenge, not out of blind rage, but out of a sense of justice. They refused to let the Wraith continue their genocidal rampage. Even in the depths of their mourning, they organized themselves for a final stand. They decided that if the galaxy wouldn't protect the innocent, humanity would. And so began one of the most staggering rebuilds in cosmic history. With determination forged by loss, they constructed 5 colossal motherships, each spanning 10 kilometers. These ships weren't just battle cruisers. They were entire living, breathing civilizations capable of forging weapons, training soldiers, growing food, and even housing families. Humanity poured all their technology and knowledge into these vessels. They also studied captured Wraith equipment, figuring out how to enhance their own weapons and armor. Every new ship they built, every suit of powered armor, every handheld weapon was named after someone who had died in the attacks on Earth and its colonies. In this way, they honored the fallen with each step forward. These motherships became the backbone of what remained of humanity. It was said that when one of them entered a star system, local pirates and raiders would scatter like frightened animals. But the humans weren't satisfied just defending themselves. They wanted to end the Wraith threat for good. Over 30 years, they scoured distant star clusters, searching every corner for signs of this dreadful enemy. They drifted quietly across the cosmos, placing their own people in cryo-sleep whenever they traveled long distances. It was more efficient, preserving resources and maintaining the element of surprise. Their population grew from 1 million to 5 million during this wandering crusade. They formed small colonies, established trade where they could, and gathered intelligence from local systems. But there was always one main goal: to locate the Wraith strongholds. The day they finally found them marked a turning point in galactic history. The Wraith had built a sizable fleet, over 120 ships, each rumored to be equipped with advanced shielding and powerful weapons. Yet in less than 10 minutes, the humans' motherships and their newly developed weaponry tore through the Wraith ships like they were fragile toys. Survivors from that battle described it as a blur of beams, missiles, and scorching debris. Within moments, the Wraith fleet was nothing but twisted metal drifting in space. On planetary surfaces, the Wraith's ground forces were equally fearsome. They'd ravaged many worlds, and local defenders often stood no chance. However, when the human ground troops arrived, everything changed. They dropped in heavily fortified shuttles, clad in power armor that allowed them to run faster and hit harder than anyone had seen before. Bolts of energy would glance off their suits. They charged through the chaos, flanking and overwhelming the Wraith positions. Soon, other species on these besieged worlds joined the humans, pushing back the invaders. In the aftermath, local defenders would look around in disbelief, trying to process how quickly the tide had turned. The Wraith, so dreaded across countless systems, were being systematically dismantled. When the fighting died down, the humans weren't interested in conquering or pillaging. They helped rebuild homes, gave survivors food, and shared medical supplies that accelerated healing. People across the galaxy started referring to humanity as both terrifying and compassionate. They were a force that could obliterate you one moment and help you up the next. Their reputation soared. Even some of the species that once refused to stand by them began to reconsider their outlook. But humanity didn't forget the original betrayal. In one of the most dramatic moments recorded in Grand Council archives, President Matilda Becker, the strong-willed leader of the humans, requested an audience with the entire assembly. She arrived not in some fancy diplomatic vessel, but in a practical transport that bore scars from countless battles. Standing tall in front of hundreds of delegates, she showed evidence linking the BRTH, a powerful race seated in the Grand Council, to the data leak that led the Wraith to Earth. In the hush that followed, no one doubted the authenticity of the evidence. The BRTH were exposed as traitors. President Becker didn't demand their extermination. She didn't even ask for vengeance in the bloody sense. Instead, she demanded that the BRTH monarchy be dissolved, that the guilty be tried for war crimes, and that the entire race be forced to atone by helping rebuild the colonies they had helped destroy. Many in the assembly were shocked by her restraint. This was the very race that had played a huge role in the near annihilation of humanity. Yet the humans had no interest in wiping them out. They wanted justice, not genocide. That was another twist in a myth. The same hands that delivered merciless attacks on the Wraith could also show mercy when faced with a different evil. It said that at the end of her speech, President Becker looked every council member in the eye and said, "We've lost more than you can possibly imagine. Still, we don't believe in punishing the children for the sins of the parents. But remember this, we may forgive, we may choose to help rebuild, but we will never forget." For 15 more years, humanity continued what they called the Great Hunt. They tracked down the last remnants of the Wraith across uncharted sectors. Everywhere they went, they liberated captured worlds and formed alliances with those who dared stand against tyrants. The Wraith tried to regroup a few times, but each attempt was crushed. As their numbers dwindled, the stories about how unstoppable humans were kept growing. People whispered that the motherships were unstoppable juggernauts, that the human soldiers could walk through plasma fire without flinching, and that their leaders would place victory or death on equal footing. The Wraith learned the hard way that there was no escape, no place to hide. Eventually, the final Wraith holdouts were cornered. Some tried to negotiate, claiming their leaders were responsible for all the evil, not the ordinary soldiers. Humanity listened, interrogated, sifted through the lies. They executed the worst criminals. Others were imprisoned or placed under close watch. Their weapon caches were destroyed, their factories dismantled. Then, in a surprising move, the humans allowed certain Wraith survivors to live and work in controlled habitats, much like the earlier arrangement with the BRTH. Once again, they took no joy in eradication. They had always said the fight was about protecting innocent lives, not mindless vengeance. The galaxy began to settle into a fragile peace. Freed planets began to recover. Entire species that had lost hope found reasons to believe in something better. Humanity's role in the galaxy changed, too. They weren't just an army charging in a battle. They had become counselors, engineers, and mediators. They helped draft charters that would prevent future betrayals from rotting galactic alliances from the inside. They even established programs to share technology and medical advances, so no world would be left defenseless against a threat as terrible as the Wraith. Over time, the motherships weren't seen as war machines, but as symbols of resilience. Pilgrims from distant star systems traveled just to glimpse them. Some sought cures for rare diseases, others wanted to study advanced human engineering. Many simply wished to stand on the bridges of these legendary craft, to feel the hum of the engines that had carried humanity through its darkest chapter. The Kexians, who had once been saved by human hands, became some of their closest friends. We exchanged cultural knowledge, improved each other's ships, and engaged in trade that benefited both sides. Kovak would often recall his father's tears, saying that he hoped the memory of that kindness would never fade. Whenever a Kexian child asked why we told stories about humans, Kovak would smile gently and explain that it was important to remember those who showed us compassion in a universe so often ruled by cruelty. In galactic textbooks, there's now a chapter detailing how Earth was once the birthplace of a brilliant and compassionate race. Some texts call them humans, the unyielding warriors. Others refer to them as the guardians who shouldered the burdens of many. But no matter the title, the essence remains the same. They showed us that even after suffering unimaginable loss, it's possible to stand up for what is right, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to take vengeance on evil without losing your sense of mercy. For some, it's still too hard to believe that humans ever existed. They point at the unstoppable nature of the mother ships, the way the humans seem to appear from nowhere, and they claim it's all fables meant to scare potential invaders. But people like Elder Kovak know otherwise. He stood on the deck of a human vessel. He saw how their captain worried more about wounded Kexians than about her own bruises. He listened as they taught us how to terraform, build advanced warships, and even farm in soil that needed special nutrients. Those are experiences that no myth can replicate. As the years went by, humanity's population started to rise again. They created new colonies, though not with the grandeur of the old Earth. Some say they keep these settlements hidden, trusting only a handful of allies with their coordinates. After all, they've already lost a home once and aren't eager to give anyone a chance to repeat that tragedy. But they still travel the galaxy in smaller expeditions, checking in on worlds that might need help. They offer medical aid, share knowledge, and sometimes engage in joint training exercises with local defense forces. If you ask me, the best part of this story is that it's not just about starships and battles. It's about a species that proved compassion can be as powerful as firepower. When everyone else turned us away, they stepped up. Then, when they themselves were dealt the cruelest blow, they still chose to fight for justice rather than lashing out blindly. You might say their hearts were big enough to hold both fury for the wicked and empathy for the weak. That duality made them unpredictable to their enemies and invaluable to their friends. Even now, there's a small memorial on our new Kexian homeworld. It's simple, just a statue of a human soldier standing with a Kexian child. Some pass by it daily without giving it a second thought, but those of us who know the real story will pause every now and then. We'll think of how everything might have turned out if humanity hadn't answered our call for help, and we'll feel a chill. Because in that alternate timeline, the moon would have broken apart, and Kexians would exist only as a footnote in someone else's star chart. Sometimes travelers from across the galaxy come to visit that statue. They've heard the rumors and want to see if there's any truth behind them. They'll ask around, so, did humans really do all that? Did they actually take on the Wraith, rescue countless worlds, and then spare their enemies once the fight was done? And they usually get the same answer from some local with a proud smile. Yes, they did. And we saw it with our own eyes. When Elder Kovak tells this story, he ends with a quiet reflection, spoken in a trembling voice. He looks out at the group of wide-eyed listeners, young Kexians who haven't even left their home system yet, and says something like, "Never doubt what good people can do, even if they seem like myths. If you live long enough, you might see it happen yourself." Then he'll walk away, leaning on his carved staff, leaving everyone to feel that something grand and almost magical touched our galaxy once. The strangest part is, even after all this time, even after the new alliances, the reformed Grand Council, and the continuing expansion of trade routes, humans remain a bit of a mystery. They don't reveal all of their technology. They rarely talk about their past, except when urging us to avoid the mistakes that led to Earth's destruction. It's as if they carry an unspoken promise to never let another Earth happen under their watch. That's probably why so many young Kexians want to sign up for exchange programs with them. There's a sense of awe in traveling with these once mythical beings. The stories keep spreading, and with each retelling, the humans slip further into legends for those who haven't met them. Yet to the rest of us who have shared meals with them, fought beside them, or watched them nurse a wounded child back to health, they're as real as the stars themselves. And no matter how many centuries pass, the memory of what they did for us will endure. Because legends can fade or become twisted in telling, but lived experiences don't vanish so easily. And for those who still refuse to believe, Elder Kovak would simply shrug and say, "I was there," which usually is enough to end any debate. He has seen the warships and the mother ships. He has heard the thunder of their weapons and felt the gentleness of their care. He has walked on the terraformed lands they gifted us and watched as they soared away to new frontiers. And that is why there's a monument on our world dedicated not to a myth, but to the species that taught us resilience, hope, and compassion on a scale we never thought possible. They are more than stories in dusty archives. They changed the course of history in ways that still ripple through our galaxy. In the darkest of times, they proved that one act of kindness, on a cosmic scale, can reshape the fate of an entire planet. So the next time someone looks at the stars and says, "Humans are just a legend," you'll know the truth. They're out there, forging new alliances, ensuring that what happened to them never happens again, and reminding us all that just because something seems like a myth doesn't mean it isn't real.